Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wine and Chill and to our first live. And yes, my technologically challenged self has maybe kind of figured it out. I don't really know. We're about to see. But first, a quick disclaimer.
Such legal information is intended for general informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for a consultation. Quick disclaimer about this video. Information posted on this video, including any responses to legal questions, comments, opinions, recommendations, analysis, references, referrals, or legally related content information, herein defined as legal information, is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship between you and I. Such legal information is intended for general informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for a consultation with an attorney, and you should not rely upon such legal information. You understand that your postings to this channel are not confidential, and neither are mine, and are not subject to attorney-client privilege. Whew.
Woo, indeed. Okay, I'm slowly getting here. I thought I figured I'd bring back our original disclaimer from Kanye. So, hi guys, how are y'all? Thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited. Welcome to our first live. I see everyone's here. Hey, Felicity. Oh, hey, Rachel. Jasmine, Chelsea. I see all of y'all here. I'm super excited. Oh, Critics Kingdom, which is a great podcast. If you don't listen to it, you should listen to it. And I have a special guest today since we are going to be talking about Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I brought on a Real Housewives expert. So without further ado, I'm going to add Justin to the live stream. Hello.
How are you? I'm great. Good. I feel like you just brought me to the stand as an expert witness.
That's what you are. That's what you're going to be today, our expert witness.
Love it.
Also, I love this shirt because it's Black History Month. So in case that you didn't know that it's February and it's Black History Month, should be Black History Month every month.
Right. So, and I brought an accessory.
Cheers to you.
Good wine.
I hope y'all have your wine as well. So today, a few weeks ago, because I'm delinquent, we did our Wine and Lawsuits Wednesdays, and all of you voted for Erika, Jayne, and Tom Girardi and their legal saga, because it's not just one person that's suing them. So I figured we were going to talk about that, and Justin's here to give us the Real Housewives tea, a little bit of background about how she's, allegedly living lavish. So first, let's go through what the claims are. So currently in the original case, because there are multiple cases at this point, they were both being sued for unjust enrichment, accounting, so aka show me the receipts, breach of contract, conversion, which is also legalese for thief and money, and tortious interference with a contract. So they were being sued for all these things by other law firms, for various reasons, which we are going to get into. So I wanted to bring Justin along to kind of give a little background into the backstory, which you all know since this has been going on for a while, is that Erika's husband, Tom Girardi, is a famous attorney. Aaron Brockovich, I think is the name of the movie, was based off of him. Excellent attorney, personal injury attorney. He also represented a bunch of the victims' families in the 737 plane crash, the Lion Air plane crash, and allegedly kept some of that money for himself and for Erika, apparently. So I was curious to see, when you watched the show, did you notice anything about her lavish lifestyle?
Since the beginning, when Erika first joined Housewives of Beverly Hills, she's always been a really expensive woman. And that's one of the things that we love about Erika on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And it's just sad to me to see that, unfortunately, it's possible that some of that opulence comes at a pretty bad cost. And I think that the people who are working on this case will not have a hard time really figuring out, that there may be some proof to where that money went, definitely, just by watching one episode.
And what I found interesting was in the case, it cited specific references to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So we're going to go, I love to read through the receipts. So we're going to hide Justin for a second. We're going to pull up the legal language. So specifically, what was in this case? So, I love a spicy intro, and I know it's been a while since we talked about the case, but I figured I would share with you one of the clips that we had before from when we previously talked about it.
But the big one, and the one we're going to look at for a second, is the alleged fraud. Let us pull it up. So you know how we usually, when we do full-on legal shenanigans, entertainment law shenanigans, we start with the beginning because the beginning is always spicy, and I love a spicy writer. Well, this one does not disappoint, so we're going to start with paragraph 1 just to walk through it really quick. Tom Girardi, Tom, referred to here and as Tom or Girardi, and his law firm Girardi Keys are on the verge of financial collapse and locked in a downward spiral of mounting debts and dwindling funds. Mind you, complaints are all allegations, so of course the plaintiff's attorney wrote it in a searing manner. They presently owe tens of millions of dollars to clients, lenders, co-counsel, settlement administrators, and experts, to name only a few, and have tried in vain to forestall the payment of those debts.
Y'all bear with me in the technical challenges. We might go through a few of them, to be honest, but I promise it will get better the more that I do this. So, anyway, we're here. So, as we can see, they had alleged that Tom had embezzled money from these victims, which, of course, is not only problematic, it is immoral. So fast forward to now, because I see Gabrielle George joined as well from Emily D. Baker's channel, who had given me a shout out earlier today. So I really appreciate that. And she's been covering this every single filing, which is awesome. So one of the things that has progressed to, Tom has basically admitted, like, yeah, maybe I kept the money to myself, but however, now I have dementia. That is what he's saying in court documents. And he's also saying that he's broke, that $50 million has vanished into the air and he no longer has said $50 million, which I find interesting. What about you, Justin? What do you think is going to play out on the Housewives show regarding where all of a sudden their tens of millions of dollars have went?
I think that that's really interesting, and it definitely conflicts with Erika Jayne's entire brand. It conflicts with everything she's shared about her husband, because one of the things that she's said oftentimes to kind of justify her being in a marriage where I believe she's 30 years younger than Tom, which isn't a problem for me, but obviously, she's had to answer to that pretty much her whole 20-year marriage. And one of the main things that she's kind of justified that with is saying, like, hey, he's really intelligent, he's smart, he's great at what he does. She went on Wendy Williams saying, like, she doesn't even have a prenup in place because he's so smart that, like, it would be pointless because he would be able to figure out a way around the prenup. So a man that has that much intelligence and power and skill, I'm surprised that it's conveniently just disappeared when he needs it the most.
I am surprised as well, because I'm not a medical doctor, but as somebody with I would hope an ounce of common sense, dementia is not something you magically just get. It is a slow growing, it's very unfortunate disease. So I think it is very interesting that to avoid, as to me, in my personal opinion, and not my legal opinion, what seems to be, his time in jail, it's very convenient because, as you guys know, if you are incompetent, you cannot stand trial, which I find very interesting. And I find interesting because if you are suffering other diseases, you do stand trial and they do put you in jail. But if you're incompetent, they do not allow for that. And as a lawyer, he's very aware of that. Something you brought up,
Very convenient.
I find it very interesting. I find it very, very interesting.
Olivia Pope energy.
Well, I don't even think Olivia Pope could help the two of them at this point.
Right.
It's just a mess. One of the things that you brought up that I think is going to play out is the fact that they have no prenup. But if they have no prenup and he's alleging that he has no money, half of zero is zero. So I'm just curious as to what the overall plan is over there, because nobody sits there and builds tens of millions of dollars to then decide to give it away, to throw it away, and to magically lose it. Like, that's not what's going on. So I think that that's definitely going to come into play. They have no prenup, but they are in the middle of divorce. They are actually getting divorced. Do you think that their divorce is for the show, or do you think that their divorce is real?
I have to just go ahead and say, first of all, I'm a Erika Jayne fan. So I definitely hope for the best for her. And, if she really is divorcing him because of some maybe she's just disgusted in the whole situation. It's a possibility. But at the same time, I do think that this isn't the first time we've seen a housewife jump ship in their marriage whenever the going gets hot. If you guys watch Real Housewives of Potomac, Karen Huger, she wanted to do the same thing. I think that she ultimately didn't because they were able to square away her husband's legal issues without having to do that. But I think that it's a very common, very popular move to make. And I wouldn't be surprised if it is just to protect assets. And it's probably also going to be good for the show.
That's true. I'm also curious if she is going to talk about it. I remember back in the day, when I used to watch Real Houses of New Jersey, and Teresa and her husband were going through everything, all of that played out on the show. So I'm curious if she's going to go that route, or if she's just going to be like, oh, I can't talk about it. My attorney said, which her attorney is obviously not Tom, said that I can't talk about it. I'm curious to know y'all's opinions. So I put a little link. So if you guys want to click on the link, if you want to join the live stream, we'd love to have you. We can have a little chat and get to know your opinions on what you think about Erika's prenup or lack thereof. So let me know if you guys want to join in. I think I'm getting slowly the hang of it. So we'll just pop up if you want to, come chat with us. Or if it doesn't, well, we're going to get there. We're one day at a time.
Right. Yeah. I just think it'll be interesting to see what the show does with this storyline. Is definitely something that I don't think she'll be able to avoid. That's for sure.
Definitely. I think Lisa Rinna will bring it up, to your point earlier when we were talking about it.
Right. Yeah. Lisa Rinna, if you guys watch Beverly Hills, but at the same time, the thing about Beverly Hills that I do like is, for the most part, they do a really good job talking about tough issues. Like when Kyle's husband was getting sued for possible misconduct with his real estate firm, like it was okay for them to talk about it. Sometimes it runs housewives off the show, but I think that they do a good job creating a space to where they do get to talk about it amongst their girlfriends, and we as viewers, we get to really benefit from that. So
it's true. Well, I see we have Jace here who wants to chat with us, so I'm going to add them to the stream. Hi, how are you?
Howdy. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very clear.
Awesome. It is actually me, Felicity. Jace is my first name.
Felicity, boo! Why did you say that? You threw me for me. I was like, I don't know what Jace. I hope you know this good. I knew you wouldn't let me down. I knew you'd call in. Felicity, by the way, is one of my favorite subscribers and one of the people who always, will be there to check me when needed and always have a little bit of tea in the comments.
Awesome.
Me and my endless K-pop knowledge as well.
Yes.
So this whole situation is, first of all, I want to believe that anyone in our justice system who comes across this case and sees this man saying he has dementia is like, this white man is lying. But at the same time, I don't trust our justice system at all. Like, not at all. And like Erika said, this man is really intelligent. So who's to say that this dementia thing is like not a front for something else?
I think it's interesting also because he's going through bankruptcy now, because he has stated in court documents that he has $0, that he's penniless. And so while he's going through the bankruptcy, he has dementia, his brother is actually filing to have a conservatorship over him to help take care of him, which would then strengthen his case that, yes, I'm actually incompetent, I'm impaired, I need someone to help me, which it's very interesting to see conservatorship come up in that context versus like the Britney Spears context that we just talked about, like a different video.
Yeah, the hybrid business model there.
So you see, like, conservatorship can clearly be abused either way. It can be abused to, harm people that shouldn't be under conservatorship, or it can be used to shelter people that should actually be facing legal charges.
Exactly. And that's why I said I don't trust our legal system. There are way too many loopholes for these kind of people to come through. Like, I remember being on one of Emily's streams, and she was kind of going through like the layers upon layers upon layers. She was talking about the Tati
Mhm.
case this time. She was going upon layers upon layers upon layers of like all the shell companies and everything. I'm like, damn girl, what y'all need all this
Mhm.
for? Like, it's just like all these extra things. And I remember you saying once that that's completely legal. And
It's
it's like,
completely.
and
Mhm.
I'm like, what y'all got to hide?
Exactly. Only people trying to hide things need that many layers of shell companies, and only people trying to skirt the law go through all these types of proceedings. What I find interesting now is that the two trustees in the case are having a hard time trying to find the assets that they're trying to liquidate. And I'm like, well, the assets are in their house. You need to find them. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out. We have seen far too often in this country that the justice system needs a bit of reform, to say the least. So I'm in full agreement with what you're saying.
Yep. Not just a bit, it needs to be completely overhauled. Tear it down. Tear it all down. Yes, I'm definitely one of those people.
Me too. But we'll keep that between me and you. Me, you, in this live stream. Well, thank you for calling in. I appreciate you. And now I know that your first name is Jace. So,
I appreciate you too. Thank you for having me on.
of course, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Justin back on. Hello.
Hello.
Look at that. First caller.
It was so easy, right?
I know. I was telling Justin that I was nervous about this whole thing because y'all know, as a tech attorney, I'm very shameful with the tech. It's quite a mess. Quite a mess. Oh, here comes Chelsea. Let me add Chelsea to the stream. Hello,
Hey.
Chelsea. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Hey, Justin.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. So I just wanted to comment because I am a huge Real Housewives fan. I watch all of them. But I don't know if maybe Justin, you and Stephanie could speak to this in regards to your question about whether they're going to get into it this coming season on Beverly Hills. I've been seeing some of the blogs like Reality Tea say that, oh, she's going to spill everything and it's going to be this whole thing next season and blah, blah, blah. But I'm really wondering if honestly Andy and everybody is actually going to like get into it with her, because I feel like he tends to not bother the White Housewives with like money issues. Like it seems like that only really happens on like Potomac and Atlanta. And I've almost never seen it other than New Jersey notwithstanding. But even with that, Andy didn't really get too into it with Teresa on the reunions and stuff. So I'm very
A really
interested
good
to
observation.
hear where you think like it's going to go in relation to like how it's been treated on the Black Housewives franchises versus how it's been treated on the white ones. Because even Dorit, her and her husband have been like well known for years that they're doing God knows what, and it's never come up on Beverly Hills.
That's a great question. I'll let Justin go first since he is our expert on Real Housewives.
Well, first of all, Chelsea, you made a really interesting observation, to say the least. And I never really thought about it that way because I pride them on being super transparent, and they are. But now that you say that, it does seem like when it comes to being in the position to where they're questioning, their wealth, they do skirt away from that. Like they're more open to talk about whether Dorit did coke in the bathroom,
Right.
rather than talking about her finances. So now that you mentioned that, it's possible, especially also with Tom Girardi being an attorney, that it may be off limits. But I know that we can count on our girls to at least tiptoe around it, and that's good enough for me. I don't know if it's good enough for y'all, but that's good enough for me.
I think
But
go first, sorry.
But at the same time, it'll be hard. And I said in the beginning, it goes against Erika Jayne's brand. She talks about it costs $40,000 a month to be Erika Jayne. So what is she going to be on the show, moving out of her home? What's going to be her storyline? Is she going to be too sad to show up to film? It's hard to have a storyline and be Erika Jayne at all and be on this show it's almost like we would be asking her to be a different woman. So
Yeah, I'm very interested to see if the Glam Squad will be present next season because she normally, I don't know if you guys remember the episodes where they would be going to all these far-flung vacations, but like
In
when they went
Dubai.
to Dubai, she brought like
Mhm.
5 or 6 people with her to Dubai.
Definitely. I think from a legal perspective, if I was her attorney, I would tell her not to say anything, of course. So because whatever she says is going to be used against her. All of Housewives, there are clips of it literally written out in the complaints, the various complaints, being like, "Well, clearly you have money. Like, where did you get all of this from?" And a lot of it is through loans, which is very interesting. So I think that was like a point that I found interesting in the complaint was that Tom and his law firm took out a bunch of litigation loans. So litigation is very expensive. So they usually will take out the litigation loan. And then when they win, they'll pay back the loan. They took out large sums of money for these loans. It seems that he, instead of paying it back, used the money on Erika, likely for her various Glam Squad expenses and various other expenses. So if she's only going to have Real Housewives of Beverly Hills money, that's not going to cover everything. I know they're paying her well, but they're not paying her that well.
right. But with that said, like you mentioned, like if you were her attorney, you would tell her not to say anything. But do you get what I say when I say like her presence, Erika Jayne itself, is incriminating in this scenario?
Exactly.
Like
That's why they're getting divorced. I think that's why they're getting divorced. But it's interesting because they have no prenup. So Erika Jayne, the persona, half of it is still belonging to Tom. So how could she keep up that persona if she doesn't have any money? He's saying he has no money. That means he's saying she has no money, which is clearly not true. She's keeping this up.
When you first said that, I thought I was confused because I'm like, okay, well, if he has no money and they have no prenup, what's the big deal? But you say that to say they have the right to garnish her wages as well because
Basically,
they're one unit.
they're one unit. They're one legal entity under the law until they're divorced.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
so I think that's going to be interesting. And to your point, Chelsea, I think they are going to have to address it because what is she going to be wearing? Like TJ Maxx all of a sudden? Like that's not going to happen. I love TJ Maxx. I wear TJ Maxx, but you know.
And I guess my last question to you two is like, do you guys think that she's going to keep doing the singing, dancing bit of Erika Jayne? Because like legally, I feel like how is she going to manage to, like you were saying, Stephanie, untangle that? Because EJ Global was the company that, you know, Tom was funneling all the money to, and that was under Erika Jayne. So I'm just wondering if she'll even be able to keep doing, you know, her singing and dancing and all of that, her pop star persona.
Persona. It's all very it's very interesting to me, but that's a good point, Chelsea, because technically she would have to create another company. Like that company now is being looked at for fraud. Like the stain of fraud doesn't magically go away like 2 days later. That's not how that works. So, and I think what's interesting too, and I feel like in general, the show will skirt around it. And by perusing through her Instagram, what she's trying to skirt around is what is the root cause of the original lawsuit, which is 100 and I believe 39 people unfortunately died in a plane crash, and allegedly your husband took money from their family. I'm like, that is a moral problem. Outside of the legal issue, outside of, you know, the technicalities of like, oh, I'm doing fraud, oh, I'm doing this, you're stealing from victims of families. So I don't know why Bravo would still, after all this coming out, want to associate with that type of person, to be honest.
Yeah. So
that maybe that's harsh, but
so Chelsea, how do you feel about all of the accusations, and do you feel like they're all innocent until proven guilty, or how do you feel like we, the viewers, should feel about this whole situation?
I mean, I honestly believe it because I read like a little summary up on Reddit of all 30 pages. And it basically they've been sued multiple times. Girardi Keese, which was the company that he used, the law firm, and it was for the exact same thing. Like it was always for embezzlement of funds and not giving people their settlements. So honestly, I believe it's true, and I do kind of err on the side of Stephanie, I think, where it's kind of like, why are you negotiating with somebody who had something to do with this? I mean, I think you get into the weeds with like, did she know everything? Probably not, but I also wouldn't be surprised if she did, because that's her husband, And I feel like we actually always get into this thing with housewives where it's like, how much do housewives really know about their like spouses? I feel like that's across all the franchises, because inevitably somebody's husband's gonna mess up. But yeah, I think I'm kind of like, I think that they're more on the guilty side. That still needs to be determined in the court of law, but it sounded pretty bad.
Exactly. Well, he's admitted to certain parts of it, which is also the problem. He's admitted to it and then been like, oh, well, I lost the money, but now I have dementia. So you have admitted partially to the fraud. What is going on? You can't like only partially admit to doing something. If you committed fraud, then that means you took money from people.
Right. I honestly think he thought he was going to pass away before this hit. Like, I like, not to be like morbid, but like that man is old. We all know it. That man is over 80. He's been doing this for like 30 years. Like,
there goes this
bring another good point.
Like, I'm not surprised if they really were like, it's not going to catch up with you. Like, it's just not going to, or he thought he was just going to outsmart it. Like, that's what's more likely. But I really think that man was probably like, oh, this isn't ever going to come up in my lifetime.
I think it does show the hubris of privilege, to be honest, which I think that certain people never think that they're going to die, to be honest. So I don't think maybe he thought like he'd die. I think he thought like, oh, I'm smarter than all these people. Like they made a movie about me. I'm so smart. Look what I can do. Screw all of this. And I think now he's basically like, no, I'm still getting out of it. Like he's like, okay, well, I have all these different avenues. I'm just going to go down whichever one. And I'm not going to accept any blame for what I did.
Yeah, it's like that phrase from, I think it's the Dark Knight Rises or something, where they're like, you die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain type of thing. Because it very much seems like they started out very, very well, and like he was in in the people's public interest and doing what he needed to be doing, but then you get caught up in a lifestyle. I think that happens to a lot of people though, where you get caught up and now all of a sudden you're living this super fast lifestyle in Beverly Hills and you got to keep it up. You have a wife who wants to like live just a lap of luxury too. You can semi afford it. And then next thing you know, you got to like start paying the piper, and then you're paying the piper's piper. And then, now you have this.
I agree. And I think one of those things is, as an attorney myself, no attorney makes that much money to live the way they live legally. It's not making sense with a C. They're living a billionaire lifestyle on an attorney's budget. Like it's not adding up. Somebody tell me so I can finally pay off my student loans, because that's to me. Well, thank you. I want to guys. A shout out. Chelsea is my dear friend for many years now, and Chelsea actually helps me with a lot of my research. So Chelsea is the reason why this channel has moved over into entertainment land, since she did all the screenshots for the Kanye video. So I have to shout that out.
Doing it for the people.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Shout out to Reddit too.
Oh yeah, I've recently learned about Reddit, which, not that I knew that it was there for people like, you didn't know what Reddit was. I just never really went on it, and I accidentally went on it with Wall Street Bets, and we ain't gonna talk about that. Learned my lesson. I appreciate this. Well, before I forget to do it, so Justin is on our channel, and I want him to come back to our channel. So, help if you feel so inclined to pay our student loan and send Justin a little bit of coin. So put that out there.
It's funny when you said that it's fine if anybody knows how an attorney can make that much money legally, let you know so you can pay your student loans. I was going to say, and speaking of student loans.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was like. And speaking of which, the quicker I pay these off, the more videos we can do in a timely manner. I won't have to be at work all day. Oh, but yeah, it's definitely been very, very interesting to watch this play out. What I'm curious about is, the end result is, and this is going to be morbid, to be honest, I think that they're just going to get away with all of it. Like, I don't have the highest hopes in our system that any actual repercussions to their actions will happen. To be quite,
I,
what do you think?
unfortunately, it's kind of like when you first told me about this topic, I didn't expect it to. I expected it to go away. Like, or when I first saw this whole case, I was like, okay, it's gonna go away.
Yeah.
So when you brought up speaking about the topic, I thought you were talking about it in past tense,
Mm-hmm.
because I just knew for sure, like, oh, that's over with by now. So I'm surprised that it's still ongoing. I'm not surprised at all about this clever dementia claim.
It's very
Um,
clever is a
but
very kind way to put it.
yeah, and it's hard for me, because I only know Erica from a fan standpoint of view,
Mm-hmm.
and I never like to think of the people that I've once loved as doing anything wrong. So
Yeah.
even even trying to keep some hope that maybe she didn't know has been kind of hard after uh, looking into this case.
Well, let's see. We have someone waiting here poised. So let's see what they think about whether or not Erica knows. Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Justin. I have a couple of questions. First of all, that banner, that student loan banner, that cracked me up. That was
So,
everything. Loved it. You cracked me up. I love it. Love
I
your
gotta tell y'all
channel.
where the money is actually going, and it's going to
Right.
that.
Where the money resides. That is so funny because you actually inspired me. I started school and I really will not take out more than $1,000 a year in student loans, so I'll pay the rest. But it kills me because it's like almost like $700 a month for me
Mhm.
to go to school. But I'm like, you're gonna pay on one end or the other. So I decided to go ahead and pay on the front end. But I love your channel and inspiring people with the student loan payoff. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna hook you up when we get off here.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. Okay, so the first question, this whole like dementia is, do you think that this is like part of his tactic to, can you hear me? I'm sorry.
I can hear you now. Yep.
Okay. Do you think that this is like part of like the tactic so that he really can't be involved in the defense and it kind of gives them like more opportunity to just, I know ignorance is not a defense, but to
Mhm.
sort of just like let the paper trail be the defense or something like that. Do you think that that's the possibility that they're trying to go with the dementia? Like I'm not understanding where the dementia is coming from all of a sudden. Like why do they want to use it?
So basically, they are getting sued now in civil court. So these are collectors. So another law firm is suing them, various creditors, people they have borrowed large sums of money from and have not paid back. That's who's suing them. And then, of course, like the victims' families, that's who's suing them. Eventually, because if it's true that they have committed fraud, then criminal charges would happen. Legally, you cannot try someone who is mentally incompetent, which for good reason. You shouldn't be allowed to try someone who has mental is undergoing like any type of deficiencies or is unable to stand trial basically. However, there are many cases of people who have alleged that they are mentally incompetent and they're not. They're just doing that because they don't want to stand trial, because they don't want to go to jail. So from my opinion, I think that might be a tactic, because at A, nobody wants to go to jail, but B, at that age, at 81 years old, you've lived this life, your whole life, you've now lived an extremely lavish lifestyle for whatever reason. Like that would be a very different, stark reality. And who wants to, pass away in jail? Not to be morbid,
Mhm.
nobody does. So I think, to be honest, that's probably the biggest reason that's happening.
I think maybe he already like knew he may have had changes in his scans already, so he knew he could probably throw that in there, right? Because they're saying memory loss. Because like he's at the age where they already start screening, and if he has a family history and they showed anything before, they probably, hey, let's go grab onto those PET scans or those imagings.
That's really good point. I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out, and it's not going to play out until if criminal charges are actually filed, which they haven't
Okay.
at this point.
So you think he's just getting ready that if the criminal charges come,
Then it's already set in place. Yeah, like, oh hey, look, I have dementia. Like I can't do this with you right now.
so in the civil trials, can he just like try to settle to avoid criminal charges or no?
Currently, right now, they've appointed 2 trustees to basically collect any type of expensive things they have in their house, essentially, and liquidate them. So, like any expensive paintings, like jewelry, etc. Because Tom has stated in court documents, like, "Oh, I'm broke. I had $50 million, and I don't know where it went, but I have some stuff in my house. So, like, you guys can find these assets." So the trustees now are currently trying to find the assets, but it's been reported. So I'm not sure, the validity of it, but it's been reported that the trustees are having a hard time finding the assets, and that Erika is not being helpful. Because part of the assets are probably her things, to be quite frank.
And then one more last question with Erika, that company of hers, can she like, I know again, like dumb is not a defense or playing dumb is not because she just say like he was funding me, like, because that's what she basically acts like on the show, like he just funds her entertainment career. So like he's that's what I understood, that he just always funded it. But does she have to know where the money came from? So would it be unusual for her to receive the money if she's just thinking, my husband's funding my career through this business, but I didn't know that money was coming from those people's.
Yeah, which is plausible deniability, which is what a lot of people will say is like, oh, I didn't know. Like,
Right,
exactly, which you can say that, but then what's going to happen is they're going to pull up the receipts. They're going to pull up, they're going to pull up various timestamps if it gets to that and be like, no, you had to have known. At this point, it hasn't been proven for a fact that she knows, which is why there's so much speculation around the entire thing, to be honest. In my opinion, just as a person, you'd have to know something a little bit, in my opinion. I would think so. Unless you just want to claim like, nope, I don't know anything. I don't ask any questions, which that's highly unlikely to somebody you've been married to for over 20 years. Like, what do you talk about? But it is always, plausible deniability is always there as an option.
Yeah, I think she probably didn't ask him any questions as long as the money was coming into the account.
And there are people like that, and I'm sure she's going to keep with that story till the end of it.
And I agree with you. I always wondered, even with his Erin Brockovich background and all of that stuff, I just never really understood like how they could be that rich. Like I didn't understand that, because even knowing like the Kardashian history, they didn't even have that kind of money when their dad was alive.
And that's a good point. And that's the point that I was making too, which is, as a lawyer myself, and I work in-house. So in-house, you make less. Most partners at firms do make millions of dollars, particularly in New York, but not $50 million. That's not correct. Like, that's not happening.
It was great talking to you. Thank you so much. Bye, Justin. Bye, Stephanie. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Hello. Thank you for the super sticker.
You're welcome. Great job. I'm happy that. What'd you say?
So that's a good way to introduce that, because I forgot about it. So apparently, when we do live, there are super chats, because I see Jazz said that, some people don't want Cash App, they want Venmo. Well, there are super chats, so you can send, a penny if you'd like in the chat. Don't ask me how it works. I don't really know. But your money will go to Sally Mae. Just know that. I appreciate y'all. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, you survived your first live. You seem like a natural. Like you've been doing it forever. You surpassed your goal.
I did. Justin and I set a goal before this, and I'm like, listen, if there are 15 people in there, I'll be really excited. And there are 40 of you, so I really appreciate all of you for tuning in. Well, cool. And thank you, Justin, so much for doing this with me and for doing the first live I ever did was on your channel. So if you haven't already, you should go and follow Bingeworthy, which is Justin's channel, which is not just Real Housewives tea, to be honest. He's also a documentary filmmaker. You should watch his Gorilla Glue documentary. It's very interesting, and his editing skills are bar none. Bar none. Oh, you guys want to see? Oh, if here, let me show you guys the banner again. I know y'all love this banner. Here you go. You know, aka I love this banner. Also, our college. We found out today that we both graduated from the same college, which was very funny. So look
was
at
really
that.
interesting.
Right now. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys taking. Here goes Jasmine. I love that you expect me to know how to use a super chat, girl. I should have Googled how to do that because you know I don't know. I know it's in there, but that'll be on my homework.
Right in the comment section, like the live chat, all the way to the right, there's like a $ banner if you guys are on your mobile phone. And you click that and you can choose either super stickers or super chat. And you know, you can send any message that you want and really support your amazing creators, especially tonight, Stephanie, who works really hard coming through those documents and skating without collecting any new clients.
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate you. But yeah,
it's been a lot of fun. Happy to be here. Happy to be here with your first live. I had a friend who kind of helped me to get on and do my first live. So I just wanted to pay it forward.
Justin is my YouTube fairy godmother. So I am Brandy, and Justin is Whitney Houston, and that is what we have decided. To that, thank you guys for spending part of your Thursday night with me. I really appreciate you, and I will let y'all go, and I will catch you in the next video.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.